views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This is your moment. Gather together each week to follow leadership by example, love, and inspiration. Welcome to Miracles of Holistic Health and Wellness with one of the most prominent naturopathic doctors in this country, as well as a leading detoxification and environmental illness specialist. Now, here's your host, Dr. Roni.
Hello. Welcome to Miracles of Holistic Health and Wellness. And there are truly a lot of miracles. I'm so happy to be back. I was gone for a couple of weeks, traveling around the country, as you well know. Every time I'm on the show, I get so excited, and I can't help it, because I meet some of the most wonderful people all around the country, and they give so much value, not only for my show, but for me as well. I have this wonderful, beautiful lady on today. You're going to be so excited to hear about her. We're talking about a very special subject. Today, we're talking about stress. We're talking about post-traumatic stress. And we all live in a world of stress. And I don't have to remind you that stress kills. Stress is something that's bad for us. And, you know, people will say that there's a little bit of stress that's really good for us. But we know that stress can affect the entire body. Today I want to bring on, her name is Franny Sheridan. She's an award-winning speaker who uses comedy. She's a writer and a performer. She's very exciting. She has a unique story to tell us. At the age of 9, she discovered her Jewish identity and was warned daily to never tell anyone. The secret, however, crippled her family and her life and her development. In her 30s, she became totally aware of who she was and where she was at in her life, and she started telling the truth. She started telling her story, even after being threatened by her family members. I mean, I'm getting chills just by talking about that. Sharon, how did you do it, Franny? Franny, please tell us the story, and it's so profound and overwhelming even today in 2016 to have to hear something like that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roni, for having me on. I'm really, really grateful. And before I start, I just want to also do a shout out to thank Steve Joyner for initially connecting us. You're right. It is really relevant in 2016, and in some ways more than ever, my story, because of the crazy worldwide multicultural terrorism that's going on and how people are impacted. You know, when they come out of a quote unquote war zone, it's not like a nice, neat little package and the curtains close and the war is over and everybody goes home dandy. People are horribly impacted, and post-traumatic stress disorder is something that, you know, affects soldiers all over the world, and then of course their children and their children's children. Through the study of epigenetics, it has been scientifically proven that it goes through the third generation down. Post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, comes down. In my case, both my parents are Jewish Holocaust survivors, and yes, and after escaping Europe finally, by a filament, by a whisker, an eyelash, after their families were murdered, when my father finally reestablished himself as a doctor, because he already was a doctor who had studied at the University of Vienna. But of course, you know, people don't escape war with their papers. He was paperless. He, finally came over on one of the 3 boats from Europe after, escaping from Europe because of the fact that when he was in university and he was, becoming a young doctor who was wanting to serve both the Jewish and the Gentile communities alike, because that's how he grew up. His parents took care of Jews and Gentiles with their business. They happened to have a textile business in Vienna. So my dad was really, looking forward to having a career as a doctor in Vienna. But one day he was walking home from university, and, you have to remember that anti-Semitism was rife in Vienna from, for a long time. It didn't just start with the Holocaust. From the time my dad was a little boy, he was beaten and abused by, anti-Semitic classmates, but there was always one Gentile classmate who defended him, Eric Hyder. And he was like my dad's angel. My father loved him. But in 1938, in March, one day, my dad was walking home from university, under the chestnut trees, feeling taller than the 5'2" that he was, whatever you do in Vienna. And he heard shouts coming from the city center. So he made his way downtown just in time to glimpse Hitler's head as his, motorcade wound through the streets of Vienna to throngs of, thousands and thousands of my father's fellow Viennese chanting death to the Jews. So my father raced home and tried desperately to convince his parents, to get out of Vienna.
Right.
And they said, they wouldn't have it. They had loyal friends who were Gentiles and customers who would definitely, and my grandfather proudly pointed to a saber that was on their mantelpiece, declaring, after all, I fought on horseback defending Austria. We will be defended. However, overnight, Hitler took away the rights of the Viennese Jews in the same way that he had the German Jews. And my father kept going to university. He still, attended. But one day he was there and the Gestapo came in and began murdering the Jewish students. And my father was beaten by a large burly man repeatedly with a rock over his head until he passed out. And by the way, Dr. Roni, when I was a little girl, my father took me to, Europe several times, and he showed me the exact bench where he had been beaten. And so he, eventually regained consciousness. He had no idea how long he had been unconscious. And, he went home, and he was at this time absolutely determined to get his parents to leave Vienna with him. He came home, and he called for them, and there wasn't anyone there. And he went into the kitchen, and he thought he saw tomatoes on the counter, and he realized it was blood. So he ran out in the street, and he ran into a neighbor who told him that my grandparents had been taken away in a truck by the Nazis 2 days before. And my father used to always lament, I was one day too late. And so he very quickly packed a knapsack with, like a small Torah that had belonged to his grandfather, who, by the way, was a Hasidic rabbi who my father was very close to, who had taught my father to recite the 5 books of Moses before my dad, could even write, when he was a very little boy. And he packed, like a challah that his mother had made, and he made his way as fast as he could, as quickly as he could, to the bridge which connects Austria to Switzerland. And, it was, there were soldiers, Nazis marching back and forth. So my father hid in the bushes until the sky was, he used to say, the sky was as black as my mother's eyes. And he got up his courage, and he crept across the bridge on his hands and his knees. But he said, the bridge squeaked, and the Nazis started shouting, and he could feel like the wind from the Nazi bullets tickling his cheek. But somehow,
go ahead.
Somehow he made it over the bridge. And he used to say, Dr. Roni used to always say, how I survived, I have no idea. So he made it over the bridge to Bethune, Switzerland, and then eventually to Lens, where he had a couple of cousins living, and stayed with them overnight. And then made it to Paris, France, where he was befriended by a priest who asked him if he wanted to stay in his seminary, which he did. However, the priest, as priests are wont to do, had a big heart, and he thought the best way that he could protect my father was by having him convert to Catholicism. But my father said, listen, I don't change my religion as quickly as I change my shirt.
What a profound story. And then, the question that comes to mind, and we're going to talk about this when we get back from break, but what I want to talk about is how did you feel? Because, of course, at some point in your life, you found all this out. You found out the secret. They had to tell you the secret, and now you're on this journey out of secrecy into truth, and you do it with humor. And the question that it leaves a lot of people with, I'm sure, is how did your father survive this? And I have some input on that, on how people do survive stuff like this, because we all have, stories and devastating moments in our lives and in our parents' lives and in their parents' lives. But somehow we do survive. And you survived it. You're telling your father's story. And we all know about stress, but we don't know the profound changes that happen in our body due to prolonged stress, not only that happens in our lives, but just thinking about what happened to your father and your mother affects you today. So more when we get back, we're talking to a wonderful Frandy Sheridan, and she's going to tell us about her journey, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about how you can help yourself with post-traumatic stress disorder. More when we come back. Do
I sound a little? Do I sound a little? Do I sound a little? Do I sound a little?
Chris Stanis is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
Do you want the freedom to spend more time with your loved ones? Travel the world? Live spontaneously? Get ready, because the Chip Justice Show is here. Hosts Dr. Pat Basile and Chip Justice can help you build meaningful success while embracing life. Living a life you love is the end game in this new, inspirational, and empowering show. Positive changes for a life you'll love. Tune in every month on TransformationTalkRadio.com and visit PositiveChangeInstitute.co for more information.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Pat. Many of you have heard me talk about the Lyme disease epidemic going on right now in the world. I want to tell you about my friends at Results RNA. They have now created an entire Lyme support system for immune system support, detoxification, rejuvenation, and neurological healing. Please visit resultsrna.com to learn more, and for first-time orders, you'll receive a special 10% discount. All you have to do is type in Dr. Pat at checkout.
Naturopathic doctor, founder of the Martha's Vineyard Holistic Retreat, and author of the New York Times bestseller 21 Pounds in 21 Days, Dr. Roni DeLuce has helped tens of thousands of people, including celebrities and athletes, with her message of lifestyle change. Now Dr. Roni DeLuce wants to help you. You too can be saved. Email Dr. Roni DeLuce at info@RoniDeLuceOnRadio.com and visit mtheholisticretreat.com. Dr. Roni DeLuce, your partner in wellness.
Almost everyone at some time in their lives ask themselves, what am I? Most of our questions are ego-generated and simply don't address the problem of our false self. It's time to relax your ego and embody your soul. Dr. Dan Cohen, neurologist, inventor, and author, has created tools to awaken a new way to transform from who you thought you were into what you truly are. Visit toolstoawaken.com today.
Hi, I'm Tim Darter.
And I'm Steve Kramer.
Join us on Spirit Fire Radio. Discover how to add the mechanics of meditation to your day.
and watch yourself connect in a whole new way. Find the amazing moments in life's routines that often pass us by. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio.
Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. for your weekly guide to practical mindfulness. And to learn more, visit www.spiritfireradio.com.
Hello, this is Dr. Roni, your host, and we are talking today to Franny Sheridan. And we were talking about her story, about what happened to her father and her parents and her aunts and uncles and siblings and what happened to her, and how it affects her life today. And she ended the story before we went on break about her father's journey. And I was feeling, I didn't know how to feel. I was feeling some feelings of sadness, and I was feeling a little angry. And then I'm really confused about how to feel about this story. And I wonder, someone who's watched their family go through this and know all about it, how do they feel? If I'm feeling what I'm feeling, how do you feel, Franny? How did your father, first of all, go through this? What happened in the end? How did he survive?
Exactly. It's like a miracle. I mean, what happened next was because Father Guazon, Père Guazon, the priest who hid him, wanted him so much to convert to Catholicism. And my father, as I ended with, said, I don't change my religion as easily as I change my shirt. Then my father heard, about the thousands of unstoppable Nazis that were coming into France. So he joined the French in solidarity as a medic at Dunkirk. And so he fought at Dunkirk as a medic, but, they quickly ran out of supplies, and the Nazis were coming down the beach, and people were being tortured and murdered. And my father decided, I must end my own life. He didn't want to give that over to the Nazis. So he actually threw himself into the English Channel and recited the Shema, which is, the central Hebrew Jewish prayer, and he tried to drown himself. However, obviously he wasn't successful, because here I am talking to you. He was rescued by a British freighter who pulled him up with an anchor. And, as soon as they heard my dad's German accent, they didn't know if he was a Nazi or a Jew. So they called him Fritz. And they brought him to England and put him into solitary confinement for a couple of weeks. And I used to say, Daddy, wasn't that scary? And he'd say, well, I had clean sheets and I was safe. It's relative, right? So anyway, they put him on one of the three boats, eventually to Montreal. And in Montreal, long story short, one day he was out having a walk on a scenic Mount Royal, which is a beautiful mountain pathway if you haven't been there. And that, was a day that he first laid eyes on my beautiful mother. My mother, Liesel Zwinicki, was born in 1921 in Bremen, Germany. And, they fell madly in love, and they quickly eloped and were married in Buffalo, New York at Saranac Orthodox Synagogue. But before that happened, I will just give you a little bit of background about my mother. She was born in a strictly Orthodox Jewish home, as was my father, and had a very wonderful upbringing, was proudly Jewish. And then in 1938, as she and her three brothers and parents slept, they heard a loud rapping at the door. And, the Nazis committed all of their initial evil acts at 2 a.m. and shrouded in darkness. And my grandfather, they had a bicycle and motorcycle repair business, but in addition, he was what's called a shamas. He was responsible for the key to the synagogue. So he figured that was the reason that the Nazis had come. He escaped over the rooftop. The Nazis barged in, interrogated my grandmother, who told him, that he wasn't there, nor were the keys, and they assassinated her. They shot her twice, murdering her in front of two of her sons. And my uncle, Benno, was sent to Sachsenhausen concentration camp. My other uncle, Alfred, who was just a little boy, somehow escaped eventually shoeless and hitchhiked 60 miles to Hamburg, Germany, where my mother was working at the age of 18 as a nanny, which was customary for young Orthodox Jewish women to be trained in someone else's household. And the horrible thing is that my uncle arrived on Shabbos, on Friday night, to deliver the news of my my grandmother's murder to my mother. And my other uncle, who was in seminary studying to become a rabbi, was forced by the Nazis to sign a forged document declaring that my grandmother had died of a heart attack. And however, history has been righted. The truth is documented in a famous book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer. Her name and her actual murder on Kristallnacht are documented. So anyway, eventually the remaining members of my mother's family, after, having to deal with a lot of horrible things from the Gestapo, escaped from Europe. And then just to fast forward, their ship docked at the port of Montreal, which, as I said, where my parents first met, and then they were married. And my father's first medical practice, of course, he had to do his medical training all over again, because he didn't have any papers and there were quotas, only so many Jews. But the first place that he was offered was in Morse, Saskatchewan, which is a little teeny tiny rednecky town, kind of akin to the American Midwest. My parents were Orthodox Jews. They arrived there. They realized they were the only Jews and that the town was, populated with Eastern European Christians who, spread old lies like a horrible disease. But they felt like they heard the whispering and the pointing, but they didn't think that, they were in any danger. So my father made, good money, was really happy. My eldest two sisters were born, and then my eldest brother and another daughter. And he was happy to be taking care of the family, but they felt like aliens. Again, they felt okay until one day my dad was working in his office, and in 1951, a jealous anti-Semitic doctor, Dr. Schmidt, and his wife burst into my father's office, threatened him that they would turn his whole family into dog food if my father didn't leave town, and beat him savagely with a paperweight from my father's desk until he lost consciousness. So my father came to and looked through his broken glasses and saw anti-Semitic slogans written on the walls of his office in his blood.
Wow. Oh.
And there was a court case, right? And Dr. Schmidt was fined $20 and his wife $10 for assault. So my dad thought, what is the point of being Jewish if I'm going to lose yet another family, this time in North America?
So all of this stress, it's just, and it carries on. They say it carries on from generations to generations. And I'm sure people know that stress kills. I mean, we've heard that basic saying a lot. The psychological effects that this might have had, and we're going to talk about some of it on how to help yourself with stress, prolonged stress. One of the main things that happen with prolonged stress, as we well know, is sleep problems. The amount of sleep problems that we have in this country is overwhelming. And the anxiety that is created from psychological stress is also overwhelming. And we'll talk about how to help yourself if you have anxiety as well. There's some, simple things that you could do on a daily basis to help yourself with this profound stress. The other thing that stress creates in the person's body is the immune system is affected by stress. And we'll talk about that. And believe it or not, pain, there's a new theory behind pain, that pain is a signal that creates some stress. So depression is a hidden epidemic in this country. So that comes from prolonged stress. So I'm wondering, what happens to people that have post-traumatic stress syndrome? People like your father. What happened to the family? And what happened to you? When we come back, we should talk about some of those things because, I'm sure there's people out there like saying, you know what, this happened to me and it happened to someone that I know. What do I do to help myself besides the fact that I get up every single day and I take drugs? Because we've got an epidemic of depression and anxiety, but we also have an epidemic of drug takers. But there's so many things, being a holistic doctor, there's so many ways you can help yourself. So when we come back, we're going to talk more about how to help yourself overcome extreme stress. And Franny Sheridan is going to talk a little bit about post-traumatic stress syndrome and about how she uses comedy and how I use some things at the retreat to help you overcome prolonged stress. When you come back, I want you to talk about something that I heard you say, and it's about the inner blue monster. Talk about that when we come back. We should make fun of our inner monster more when we come back. Miracles of Holistic Health and Wellness, and we're talking to Franny Sheridan, a award-winning speaker who uses comedy. She's a writer and a performer, and she tells a very unique story. More when we come back.
Transformation Talk Radio is dedicated to the education and awareness of Lyme disease.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Lyme Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, joined here by
Dr. Nusheen Darvish.
Dr. Pat Basili and Dr. Nusheen Darvish will be bringing the most innovative, groundbreaking information, research, treatment innovations, and stories from those it affects every day.
I'm so excited to be talking about this.
We have so much to share.
Dr. Darvish and I are planning to do is connect the dots.
People suffering with all sorts of chronic diseases, it's time. It is time for them to transform.
Tune into Lyme Talk Radio and help keep our mission strong.
For the loyal listeners out there that have been listening to this incredible show on Lyme disease, we are not going to let you down. We're going to come through stronger and enrich the platform for Lyme disease awareness through Lyme Talk Radio. The message will continue, the conversations will become stronger, and the healing epic.
Naturopathic doctor, founder of the Martha's Vineyard Holistic Retreat, and author of the New York Times bestseller 21 Pounds in 21 Days, Dr. Roni DeLuce has helped tens of thousands of people, including celebrities and athletes, with her message of lifestyle change. Now Dr. Roni DeLuce wants to help you. You too can be saved. Email Dr. Roni DeLuce at info@RoniDeLuceOnRadio.com and visit mtheholisticretreat.com. Dr. Roni DeLuce, your partner in wellness.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Pat. Many of you have heard me talk about the Lyme disease epidemic going on right now in the world. I want to tell you about my friends at Results RNA. They have now created an entire Lyme support system for immune system support, detoxification, rejuvenation, and neurological healing. Please visit resultsrna.com to learn more, and for first-time orders, you'll receive a special 10% discount. All you have to do is type in Dr. Pat at checkout.
Are you ready to stop stress, anxiety, and low self-esteem from running your life? Join award-winning author Dr. Friedemann Schaub for Empowerment Radio and learn breakthrough solutions to switch out of survival mode and approach every day with great ease, joy, and purpose. Tune in the first and third Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific to Empowerment Radio with host Dr. Friedemann Schaub on Transformation Talk Radio. Visit thefearandanxietysolution.com to learn more.
Are you ready for a game changer? Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune into Business Game Changers Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Hello, we are back. Miracles of Holistic Health and Wellness, and this is Dr. Roni, your host. And we're talking with Franny Sheridan today, and we're talking about stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, and how it happens, and where it all comes from, and what happens, and the fact that it can create stress, anxiety, pain, depression in 3 generations. Here, Franny, let me ask you something, because you are so well versed in this post-traumatic stress. Did you hear that stress, depression, and anxiety can happen 3 generations down based on what happened with your grandparents?
Correct. It's been scientifically proven through the study of epigenetics, and there's a fair bit of information on the internet if anybody wants to check that out. And so, yeah, it's, from the moment that things happen to us, we are more fragile than we know we are. People are strong, but we're also fragile, and we're affected hormonally and on every level. Our DNA shifts according to experience. And certainly when people have, heavy duty experiences, and it gets passed on through mother's milk, through childbirth, through you name it. And that's just the reality. And, what you were talking about before, it's so true, Dr. Roni. If my father had the opportunity to get help for post-traumatic stress disorder in 1951, things might have been a very different in my family, but the reality was that PTSD wasn't even coined until after the Vietnam War. And plus, he didn't trust anybody. And so my mom, the last thing she wanted to do was convert to Catholicism, but that's what he forced her to do to protect the family. Everybody was baptized. He cut off ties with all of our extended family. So by the time I was born in 1961, we were this nice little, I thought, Irish Catholic family. My last name is Sheridan, don't you know? My dad actually told me that we were descended from St. Patrick himself. And
Wow.
I believed him. I was a little girl. I believed in the tooth fairy. And, plus when you're a little girl, as you know, you accept what your parents present. My parents presented a pretty solid case. I have 4 names, Frances Rosemary Sheridan. I was baptized, confirmed, the whole Megillah. And I thought we were Catholic, until one day I was 9 years old. And my dad slipped up at the dinner table and said something like, yada, 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 a Jewish. So I was like, well, Daddy, what's a Jewish? And he said, it's not a Jewish. It's just Jewish. It's what we were, what we are. And many people hate Jews and would happily kill you. So you are Catholic. That is what you tell people. Never, ever tell anyone that you're Jewish, or it'll get you and all of us killed. And in an instant, my little girl, Crayola-colored childhood was transformed into Auschwitzian black. And he told me these stories every day from then on in, Dr. Roni, and at nighttime too, when post-traumatic stress disorder robbed him of his ability to sleep, like it does so many of us. And so, I had this horrible...
People don't realize that. People are not realizing, and they don't connect the fact that they can't sleep with stress. And I always tell people that the psychological effect of stress have a lot to do with your sleep problems, and you have to have an intervention when it comes to sleep problems. You have to basically have a sleep hygiene protocol. You have to have a worry protocol. You have to have a relaxation protocol and exercise, and you have to have stimulus to control some of these techniques. And people, so you have to do all of that to sleep. I go, sleep is one of the most important things that you do in a day. And that's why we have to have 8 hours of it, 6 to 8 hours of it. It is almost or sometimes more important than eating. And so it affects you tremendously, stress. My mother used to say, stress kills. I didn't understand that. We come from a world where, it was very stressful. And I go, well, what do you mean stress kills? And another thing she used to say, you kids are going to be the death of me. And, I grew up with these kind of things because they're from the South. And they always had like little cute sayings all the time. We had to learn what these hidden things meant. And as I grew older, I realized what she was saying is that if we didn't be good little girls, because there's 4 girls and 1 boy, but the boy was perfect, and families that have boys are just perfect, so it was just the girls, and if you girls didn't behave, you're going to be the death of me. So we grew up in a household with anxiety and depression and, all kinds of things, and so as we grew up, we had to all find our way on how we were going to control our stress. And I always tell people that some stress is good, but it causes that fight or flight response. And we were never meant to live in a world of all day fight or flight. So we became addicted to stress. And stress hormone called cortisol is the master hormone for stress. So we're constantly misusing that cortisol, and our bodies are in tremendous amount of unbalance. And for an example, if I know people that their heart's always pounding, that their blood pressure is always high, and that they're always sweating, and that they're always constantly saying things that are dark. They never say anything that with light or brightness or happiness. It's just dark stuff all the time that they're saying. These are people that are considered a chronic fight or flight syndrome type of a person. They're addicted to stress. These are the kind of people like post-traumatic stress syndrome. I know that disorder, I can tell when someone has PTSD, and they don't even know they have it. Fanny, you can tell when somebody has it. All you got to do is sit and listen to some of these men. And then if you tell them that they have it, they're in such denial. They're in such denial that they end up having heart attacks and strokes. And
it's an epidemic with men.
It's an epidemic. And so we were not supposed to live in a world with chronic fight or flight. We have to have some moments in our day when our bodies relax. A person's immune system affects the way they live. It affects if you have a chronic disease, your immune system will affect your chronic disease based on the fact that you may have biopsychosocial problem like depression or anxiety or just being diagnosed with some other kind of mental illness. That affects you in a very profound way, especially if you have a chronic disease. So that's why I always tell people the first thing when they come to the retreat, let's work on who you are as a person. What kind of person are you? Let's work on your psychosocial first, and let's work on your pain, because without working on those 2 things, even if I try to help you with your chronic illness, your body is not in sync. And that's why they came up with whole body disease, body, mind, and spirit. If your body and your mind and your spirit is not in sync, then how are you going to get well and stay well? And that's why when you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm wondering all the time, how do you do it? I heard someone told me, was it Esther? She was saying how you use comedy. I'd like to hear more about how to use comedy to help yourself.
Well, what I do is compartmentalize, because it's almost like when we're trying to sleep at night, which you so eloquently outlined, that how important it is to get a good night's sleep. When we're trying to sleep and we're vulnerable, it's almost like our inner demons know it, and we're vulnerable and they want to get us. And that's why we have problems sleeping. And they're like an inner monster, whatever the voice in your head is, that keeps you awake from anxiety and stress. So what I do is I like to take those demons out, externalize them, take them out for a walk, get them out of my head. So what I literally do, like in my workshops, Dr. Roni, is I have people pretend to be their monsters, and we use different things. We use props and we use wigs, and we have fun with it, and we make fun of our inner monsters because there's so much shame and stigma still attached to having, post-traumatic stress disorder and stress and anxiety, because everybody's supposed to be so together, and it's such a lie. It's the worst lie. So we take them out of the closet, and we have our different demons, our inner demons, go at each other, have fights. That's one thing. So through theater, I also have people use drawing and painting, and having fun, bringing colors into the darkness. So reinventing their monsters and taking the power back. So a lot of it has to do with externalizing. The other thing is I'm a stand-up comic. So, depending on the type of workshop that I'm booked for, I also teach people to write comedy. And believe me, it took a long time for me to find any eyelash of humor in my dark and hidden family story. So those are a couple of different ways.
Well, I love comedy. In fact, I know I've treated a lot of celebrities and comedians and people that have extreme amount of stress in their lives, and they use comedy. So I've learned to use it as well by allowing some of my retreaters to actually watch comedy while they're here, and music and comedy. We use that a lot. We also do yoga. We also do a lot of what's called relaxation techniques with breathing, because those are some of the things that get your whole mind and body back in balance. It's amazing. I would love for people to be in touch with you. Can I give out your website and your email?
Please.
If someone wants to contact you, please call Franny. Contact her, FrannySheridan.com, just like it says, Franny, Frannie, Sheridan is SHERIDAN.com. She lists her events on her website. Her events that are coming up is on her website. And also, if you want, feel free to email her. She was so kind enough to say that she would be willing to email you back if you have a question. So email her at Franny, so Franny at FrannySheridan.com. I love when you tell your story because there's so many people out there that forgot about it, or they even though they knew that it happened, they forgot about it. And we must never forget about history, because history is what makes us today. And we talked about how the stress and the depression of what happened to your father, grandfather, and what happened to them also has a profound effect on us today. And so, but we are in a different world than they were, so we have all of these things available to us to help us today. And so, and I mentioned just a few things that you can do to help yourself with depression and prolonged stress. But the one thing that I want to tell you is that was not a cute little term that my mother used to say, stress kills. Stress does kill. Stress is dangerous, and stress can create a worse condition in your chronic illness. And we must do something about it. And we must do something about it soon, because it's measurable now. We have doctors that can measure stress. So, saying that, I like to go on break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk more with Franny Sheridan about what happens to the body after prolonged stress, and we're going to give you some value. So take out your pen and pencils and a piece of paper, and let's talk about how to help yourself live a better life if you have stress, and especially if you have prolonged stress, or if you know anyone that does, when we come back.
Get ready to experience Truth Talk Radio with host Deb Acker. Tune in to Truth Talk Radio each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests.
Naturopathic doctor, founder of the Martha's Vineyard Holistic Retreat, and author of the New York Times bestseller 21 Pounds in 21 Days, Dr. Roni DeLuce has helped tens of thousands of people, including celebrities and athletes, with her message of lifestyle change. Now Dr. Roni DeLuce wants to help you. You too can be saved. Email Dr. Roni DeLuce at info@ronideluceonradio.com and visit mvholisticretreat.com. Dr. Roni DeLuce, your partner in wellness.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Pat. Many of you have heard me talk about the Lyme disease epidemic going on right now in the world. I want to tell you about my friends at Results RNA. They have now created an entire Lyme support system for immune system support, detoxification, rejuvenation, and neurological healing. Please visit resultsrna.com to learn more, and for first-time orders, you'll receive a special 10% discount. All you have to do is type in Dr. Pat at checkout.
A word of caution: if you prefer the status quo and you are not interested in improving every aspect of your life, this book will trigger the shift out of you. The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens is available now. Author Colette Steffen brings the powerful knowledge and life-changing energy and empowerment from the radio airwaves to the pages of her new book. To get your copy in paperback or ebook, visit thetruthisfunny.com today.
Transformation Talk Radio is dedicated to the education and awareness of Lyme disease.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Lyme Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, joined here by
Dr. Nushin Darvish.
Dr. Pat Basili and Dr. Nushin Darvish will be bringing the most innovative, groundbreaking information, research, treatment innovations, and stories from those it affects every day.
I'm so excited to be talking about this.
We have so much to share.
Dr. Darvish and I are planning to do is connect the dots.
People suffering with all sorts of chronic diseases, it's time. It is time for them to transform.
Tune into Lyme Talk Radio and help keep our mission strong.
For the loyal listeners out there that have been listening to this incredible show on Lyme disease, we are not going to let you down. We're going to come through stronger and enrich the platform for Lyme disease awareness through Lyme Talk Radio. The message will continue, the conversations will become stronger, and the healing epic.
Hello, we are back again with Miracles of Holistic Health and Wellness, and there are truly a lot of miracles. This is Dr. Roni, your host, and we have been talking to Franny Sheridan, and we've had so much value today about stress and post-traumatic stress syndrome and what happened to her, profound story that brings a ton of emotions to you. And she talked about what happened, and she's now going to talk about how she helps herself and the loved ones and people who come to her with post-traumatic stress. And I just wanted, to mention that many of us think of our emotions as somewhat separate from our bodies, and we feel it's unconnected with the chemistry of our brain cells. And however, depression and irritability and anxiety, they're all reflections of the functioning of our brain. And I've talked about this on several of my shows, that when certain nutrients are not supplied to the brain, we experience a whole array of negative emotions. And we talked about this food that I ingest, that I tell a lot of my clients about, and that I will probably never stop talking about until they come up with something better, because that's just who I am as a holistic doctor. I always want to talk about the next best thing. And I'm not particularly married to any product unless I know it's the best. And if I find something better 5 years from now, then that's what I'll be talking about. But it's this food that I'm eating and that I make sure everyone eats that's full of vitamins. And for the first time, there's a company that has food that has 43 essential nutrients in it. I'm talking about 14 vitamins, 14 minerals, essential fatty acids, which is good for the brain, and it's just full of nutrition. And you can get it in oatmeal, you can get it in protein smoothies and some other foods. But the point I'm making that if you want to know about how to help your brain, because people ask me all the time, how do you do all the things that you do in a day and never get sick and look as good as you look at your age? And then I tell them, I said, I can tell you what I do, but you're not going to believe me. And most of the time they don't believe me. But I think at this particular time in my life, people are starting to really believe me because I am not getting older, I'm getting younger. And it's because of what I do. It's because of the food that I eat, and it's because of I have a certain way that I deal with stress. And I'm going to let Franny talk about how she deals that we can do for stress. Besides nutrients, we know that nutrients can cause an important change in the chemistry of our body and our brain. But there's some other things that we do that helps us with stress that can cause the same kind of effect. So can I ask you, Franny, to explain to the listeners about how you deal with profound stress over the many, many years of hearing the stories about your family? What do you do to combat stress?
Well, like all of us feel like trapped from stress, particularly at night, when we're vulnerable and lying there and you hear those voices in your head and, you have anxiety. And the worst thing to do is just to lie there and take it, So what I find really works is, first of all, get up and externalize what's going on with you. Now, if it's the middle of the night, you're sleepy, you know what I mean? A really good thing to do is actually to talk to your, what I call our inner monster, our inner demon, because it's really not you. It's a part of you that's telling you stuff, whatever it is. Worry about this, worry about money, worry about whatever the worry, anxiety is. And you can actually tell it and if nobody's listening and if you're sleeping alone or if you're in the bathroom, you can use superlatives. Yeah, right? You can tell it to leave you the hell alone. And you wouldn't believe it because you end up feeling so silly because you're actually talking to a part of yourself, but it works. You can actually shut that part of you up and go back to sleep. If it's not the middle of the night, because I come from a theatrical background, I'm an actress and a comedian and a writer and yada, yada. What I do is I get people to externalize through actually wearing costumes. Sometimes we play with wigs and stuff and have themselves literally become their monsters. And I get two people up and have the demons or the monsters battle each other and say things. And it's very silly. And once it loses power, right? It loses the charge once we get to theatricalize that. I also use, because I am very visual, sometimes I have people paint or draw with colors. So to give color to living in a very black and white trapped world, and I mean, there are a lot of different doorways to the light. So those are a couple of little examples of techniques to get out of PTSD, get out of stress, period.
Wonderful. That is so wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing, amazing show talking to you. And there's some other things that I'm going to tell you to do besides feed your brain is go to the gym, do yoga. Yoga is a great stress reduction. It helps to improve your sleep. It helps your immune function. And besides always thinking about that next pill that you're going to take, try some B-complex. If you don't have a naturopathic doctor that you're working with, try finding one or a nutritionist that's going to help you get more B-complex in your body. And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is please, please, please make sure at all costs you must sleep. If you don't get a good sleep, you will not be able to do all the things that you think you should be doing in your day. Someone just texted me a little while ago. She said, did you know that stress shrinks your brain? I thought that was cute. Yes, I do know that stress shrinks our brain. Stress does much more than that. Stress can actually stop your heart. So it can make your cancer grow. We can talk for hours and hours and hours on what stress can do, the damage that stress can do to the body. So at all costs, that is the number one thing that we always start with at the retreat is how to decrease stress in the body. And we give what's called maximum nutrition all day long, fighting free radicals, fighting inflammation, fighting so many chronic conditions that the body presents us with so that we can open up our meridians in our body to receive the nutrition and the oxygen that it needs to even fight stress. So it was such a pleasure talking to you. Oh, my goodness. Franny, I am actually going to contact you again. So see you next week, and thank you so much, Franny.
Thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure. You are a light. Thank you, Dr. Roni.
Skype her at Ronnie.DeLuz. Tweet at Twitter.com Dr. Roni. Or call and leave a text at 774-208-2477.